Nope,
Yes.
not
Yes. Oh, okay. Well, hey, good
sorry.
afternoon. That's okay. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. My name's Tom Nicholas. I'm Chief of Police here at City of St. Mary's Police Department. So, as everybody's here is pretty much aware, we're taking the 2020 version, 2021 version of our normal law enforcement presentation to leadership Elk County and into the virtual world here. So, rather than doing, and it was probably a fantastic idea, rather than doing 3 or 4 hours like we usually do downstairs with multiple presenters, we're going to focus just on primarily our canine unit and his involvement in drug detection and the safety that we use him for the community. And so I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to introduce Sergeant Mike Schaefer. He'll tell you a little bit about his program and go from there.
Okay. Well, Sergeant Schaefer at this police department here. So kind of what happens here is I've been a canine handler in St. Mary's since 2000 and I forget now, it's been a long time, 2008. So in those amount of years, I found enough that it is a valuable asset that I keep doing it to the point where now I'm working and handling my second dog. So I'll kind of give you a little background about it. I'll talk about real quick why we have it, and then we can go and we'll go find where he's hiding it for the moment, introduce him, and I'll show you a couple of things. If there's any questions or whatever, I'm sure there's a way that you guys can interact with them. Okay. Okay, so I've been a police officer now for 16 years, and in 2008, we had a canine in the department that was now taken off the road. He was old and just it was about time for him to retire, so we didn't have one for a while. And I was a newer officer to this department, and one of the sergeants asked if I would like to be a canine handler, which to me was weird because I didn't grow up with any dog. I had recently got a house dog with my wife and I, but I had not grown up with dogs. I wasn't really a fan of dogs. I didn't know much about dogs. So I spent some time researching what it would entail. And after some time, I thought it'd be a good idea. I thought it'd be something I'd be interested in. So I began at that point developing the program from the ground up again because the officer beforehand was no longer involved and things like that. So I didn't have anything to really start from, which turned out to be a good thing because it gave me a lot of extra experience and knowledge as to what I was actually needing to do and what the department needed. So that's kind of how I got into it, just kind of throw it out there. And then it was kind of, oh yeah, now that you want to do it here, it's your baby, take it over and get it done. So at that point then, we were able to procure a trainer who found a dog for us and trained a dog for us. And that was Canine Copper back in 2008. And he worked as my partner up until, 2000, what's this year? This is 21, 20, 18, 2018, 2016, 17, 18, somewhere in there. At that point, he developed some medical issues and he was starting to slow down a little bit, and he had already served like about 8 years, which is really about the time that you start looking to replace a dog anyway. So he retired, and while we were getting ready to retire him, I went and I selected a new dog, and we got that one all sent to a trainer who began training it and get it ready. And then I met with them and we began the process to integrate that dog into our agency. And so now I have Canine Nando, who's been my partner for the last, I think, 4 years. And he's a really great dog. He does a super job at the police line. Not so good at being a house dog, but that's kind of what we want. So that's kind of where I'm at. We're going to talk about Nando for a little bit. We're going to talk about why we use them in the police department. And then I'll be able to show you a couple things. So in our community here, Elk County area, the big issue we have, everybody will tell you, is drugs. Currently, the trends that we have going on now is a methamphetamine and heroin phase. Most of the drugs that we're seeing meth and heroin coming off the street. In our area here, we're not so much a big hub where people come here to buy large amounts, but we do have a substantial amount of dealers here who go to other larger areas, buy medium-sized amounts, bring them back, and then peddle them out to the users in our communities. So the way we've attacked it as law enforcement is kind of two-pronged. We work it on the patrol officer side, which is like what I would do initially, where we try to identify where the activity is and try to do things like a traffic stop on vehicles leaving that area, try to get the drugs off of those people, and then get them into the station here where they can meet with us. And at that phase there, we kind of turn it over to our drug task force area, where there we would use informants or undercover officers then to take the information we're getting from the people that we're getting the drugs off on the street on, and then go for those local dealers that we have here. And then from that point on, we can spurn it bigger through the drug task force and take it down to the dealers out of the areas in the bigger areas that we're going for. So kind of the blueprint that we try to work the way up is we start at the very basic patrol level with something as simple as a traffic stop. So a lot of times when you see the police officers out there driving around or sitting somewhere, we're waiting to see what we know are particular indicators that would let us know that it's a good vehicle. So if you get pulled over by the police and we, pull you over, you were speeding or you didn't have your lights on, or you have a tail light out, or something's going on, and we talk to you real quick and kick you loose, 9 times out of 10, what it is, it's the officer stopped you, recognized that there's no illegal activity going on, so they released you so they could go back and try to get someone that does have something. So now, where does the canine play in this? The canine is the first level of ability for us to find hidden items. So when you have a canine, their very first function is evidence location. So if it's a drug dog, we're looking for drug evidence. If it's a bomb dog, we're looking for evidence of bombs or bomb making or any precursors toward those items. It's a firearms dog. They're looking for firearms that would be used in evidence in the case. Obviously around here, bombs, guns, all that, that's not that big of a deal, thank God, but drugs is, so we use drug dogs. And so he's able to detect odor. So anytime like people say, that he found the drugs, he did, but in his case, he found the odor. So if I were to take drugs and put it in my pocket, take it out and sit my pocket or sit my shirt down, he would recognize that the odor's there and tell me that the odor's there. So the way the dogs work is they work on the odor. They got the big nose. The big noses that can smell about 400 times better than we can. And they can actually even do things where it can separate odors. So where you and I could go into a pizza shop and we smell pizza, he would go in and go, I smell the pepperoni and I smell mozzarella. That might be provolone too. And he can separate things. And the way the dog's minds work with their noses is quite incredible. So our first step is, like I said, we take it back to the traffic stop. So kind of what happens is if it's either myself or another officer, they stop a vehicle and we start recognizing what we've been trained in to be as suspicious behavior that might lead that there's possibly drugs or drug paraphernalia or something involved. Once we reach that level where we can articulate reasonable facts as to why we suspect that drugs are involved in this, that gives the officer the ability to detain the person for a little bit longer to await a canine to arrive. So if we take it like there's an officer on 1 a.m. on an evening, they're kind of watching a house that we suspect to be drug sale. People drive away from it. They pull them over for a valid traffic reason, for some sort of violation. They're talking with the person. The person's nervous. They're constantly like trying to hide something, or they're just acting weird. That gives them enough to call me. They'll call me, and with the way we work it in our rural area is the canine goes home with me. I have a take-home car with him. I'm not on call per se, like what would constitute being on call as far as being paid goes, but I always have my phone with me. And so they call me, I answer it, they tell me where they need me. I go, I get ready, I get the dog ready, and within minutes, I'm in my car en route to where they're at. At that point, we would then do what we would call an exterior sniff. So in Pennsylvania, a canine sniffing something is considered a full-fledged search, protected by the Fourth Amendment. And so when the canine is searching something, we need to be able to establish the right legal levels to do this because it is a full search. So in Pennsylvania, they have given us the ability to say that if he's sniffing the exterior of a vehicle, the dog is actually searching the air that's outside of the vehicle. And so that search is limited in scope. So at that point there, we can show up with the dog and sniff the outside of the vehicle. And the dog's trained to, if he smells the odor, and if with him he's got 7 drugs, If he smells the odor of those 7 drugs are coming from the vehicle or on that vehicle, he'll then give me what he is trained to do, called a final alert. There's different indicators, but his final alert is when he will sit and look at the space where the odor is coming from. So if he's sniffing around your car and he comes up to a door seam or a handle or a vent on the car, and he stops and he sniffs it and sits down and he looks at me and looks at it, that's going to tell me there's odor coming from that particular place on the car. That alone gives us what we would call probable cause to seize the vehicle and get a search warrant to search it. So without him, the officer would have to somehow develop that probable cause on his own, which would entail they would have to do like different interviews. They would have to see something, smell something, or somehow come with actual facts to say that there's a very high percentage chance that there are drugs in that car. And that can be very difficult because people can lie, people can hide, and people have rights to just tell us they don't want to talk to us. And at that point, the case is blown. So the canine gives us the ability to do things that without him, we wouldn't even be able to. So he is the front line on being able to get into those cars and start those drug investigations that can lead us to the dealers, that can lead us to the distributors, and go on up the road. So as far as drug search go, that's his primary role. We do go into houses when we're doing search warrants and search it. We do go any place requested, the schools or anything like that, and search them, whatever we are legally allowed to. If the request is legal and I'm able to, we will go ahead and do that. And that allows him to continue working. I don't know if you can hear him, but like I
He's
said,
crying.
he makes a terrible house dog because if he's not running around doing something, he's a little upset. And so he's in my office whining right now. So as far as drug work, that's his main job. That's what he does. We also do tracking or trailing of lost or fleeing people. That one always really cool because when you're looking for someone, we don't know where they're at, and to watch his nose go and find where that person is, whether it's the straight on the path where the person went, or he cuts it because he catches a wind scent. It's cool to watch that work. And then there's other things like what we'll call like a lost or discarded item. Anything that a human touches, we leave some sort of scent behind that you or I may not notice. But for him, if you were to hold this phone and discard it, let's say I strong-armed, robbed somebody, stole their phone, ran away. The police catch the person, but the person doesn't have the phone, but we know he went from A to B. We can put the dog in that area looking for anything with human scent on it. And he'll be able to locate an item that's hidden or discarded that has the particular scent that we're looking. So we do that. That one's not so often. That was not as often as drug search or tracking people. And then the last one is the apprehension, the bite work or the protection work or the use of force work is the kind of the route I call it. That's where the dog is used as a level of force, whether it's just barking to get people to comply, or whether it's they are actively fighting or fleeing and we let the dog go and he actually goes and apprehends the person by biting them and holding them there until I can get there. The whole thing about that is a lot of people they're willing to fight a policeman because they know legally we have to reach certain levels of something happening to use any of our weapons. And so they think there's a chance if I fight the cop, I can get away. That is a very common thought with people when they want to resist or flee from us. But when you bring a dog out and the dog's barking and growling and the spit's coming out and he is pulling at the end of the leash and the officers having to hold him back, people think twice about acting up because they know that the cop has to room, but dogs don't have the ability to think like we do. And so they don't know what the dog's going to do. So a lot of people comply as soon as the dog shows up barking, put him in the back of my car and show up on a scene. I can get him barking from the car. And most people at that point are like, okay, the dog's here. Let's just make sure everything goes kosher. If we have to send him to bite, he will bite the person and he's trained to bite them and hold on to them. So whether the person is actively fighting the dog or striking the dog's trained to hold on to the person and not bite and bite and bite and bite. What that allows is that's an element of control. So we teach him to bite limbs, whether it's the legs or the arms. Particularly, I like him the closer towards the center of the body, the better control he can have over the person. So if I can get him to actually grab the person in the shoulder, armpit area, that's the best control of the body, because he's a little right about 100 pounds. And so if you have 100 pounds on you, you're not able to get up and flail around so much. So that's the most secure place. It can obviously still have some bite damage, but it's not threatening in nature where it would cause any major issues or bleeding out that would cause the person to die. So those are kind of the areas we target. And then he's taught to hold until I can get there and we can secure the person. Once the person's secured and calmed down, we will release the dog. And he's got a command where he'll let go. And that's kind of that. So that's kind of in a nutshell, all the things you see on TV as far as like dogs doing the police dogs that do obedience and the agility things, we do them. There are daily routines are kind of built around that stuff. I don't actively go out and say, today we're going to go do agility stuff. Basically it's during a shift. If I need to get him out and play, I don't just want to throw a ball to him. That's kind of boring. I want to give him a game. So we'll do agility or some obedience thing and make it a game for him.
Yeah.
Okay.
You could take that off if you want to. We're
That'd
sitting
be
far enough
great.
apart, I
I'm
think.
dying with it.
Yeah, I was like, sorry.
So Nando is a full-bred German Shepherd. He's black. So when you meet him, you're going to think, oh, what kind of dog is he? He's a full-bred German Shepherd. He was born in Germany, exported over to the US before being trained. The funny story is he was brought over by a person in New York City as a house dog, got him in the house and realized he's going to tear my house up. Called a trainer in New York City that I've worked with in the past and like, look, you need to find a place for this dog. Channeled down the lines until it got towards our trainer up in Olean, New York. And then at the same time he was getting it, I called him and said, look, I'm looking for a new dog. And he's like, I think I got the right one for you. So the kind of the difference I got to explain, like he's a great work dog, but he's not a good house dog. So a working dog is completely different than what most people think a dog should be. This dog is always active, always energetic, doesn't like to lay down, doesn't like to sit still. And that doesn't mean he's not obedient. If I tell him to sit and lay down, I'll show you in a little while here, he'll do it. If I tell him to heel, he'll do it. But in cases where if it gets too long, he's got a lot of energy stored up, he needs to get out, he needs to do some sort of activity. It needs to stimulate him mentally as well as physically too. So he's not a very good house dog. You leave him alone in the house too long and something's going to get knocked over, chased, knocked over, chewed on. He's going to release his energy somehow. So as a canine handler, when you're dealing with a work dog, it's not so much just like a house dog where, you know, he comes to work with me and he comes home and he just goes, lays down on his bed and is a good boy. It's a little more involved. I got to take him out every so often and we got to do something to keep him running, keep the steam off. And those are the things that allow him to be happy. It allows him to continue what we call the drive, to continue to have the desire to go to work and constantly work hard for the stuff that we need him to do. So he's 6 years old, I believe. And you'll notice one of his ears is bent down. He had an injury to his ear that caused some scar tissue. So it's just a little heavy, makes him look funny and cute. He's a very funny dog. He'll rub up against you. He'll fall on his back and want petted and all that. But as soon as someone starts yelling or I tell him to get barking, he's going to be ready to like get off it. So when I get after the person, so when I like doing drills like that, where I have somebody petting him, he's acting like a dog. And all of a sudden I tell him, point at someone, give him barking. All of a sudden he's like this mean, ferocious thing. It's funny to see the two sides and how quick they can go back and forth. So we'll take a walk over to my office. I'll kind of show you where he's at when I'm here, because I'm not always on the road doing stuff. Sometimes I got to come back and do the paperwork that's required of us. And I have to be able to keep him in a safe place, because if not, he'll run around here and chew on things too. I'll show you that. We'll come back in here and I have a drug hide put out. We'll let him find it. That way he can get his toy and sit there and play with it for a little bit. And I'll explain a little bit about the different training as far as his different disciplines while we're doing that then. So my office is over this direction. My office, we got some cool things here. This is a painting my wife actually had. This would be Copper, my first dog, and so she had made that up for me one year, which is nice.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, Copper's remains are in an urn up here. After he passed away, the vet clinic in St. Mary's here sent him up to be cremated, and they took care of him for us for free. And then the city, we got this engraved urn to put him in and keep him afterwards. So, and I got some of his collar and some mementos for him there.
Do you mind if I go closer
Yeah.
so they can see? Okay.
So Nando's here in the corner in his cage. You can see he's being good. He's got a couple things to chew on and keep him active while I'm trying to get my work done and talk on the phone while I'm here.
I can barely see him.
Yeah. So this is kind of where he would stay while I'm in here. We have people coming in, getting fingerprinted and interviewed and all that. So he doesn't really run loose in the station at all. Sometimes on midnight shifts I will, and he'll just grab his ball and lay in front of my desk and chew it, and he'll go out and try to find something to drink and come back. And so it's kind of where he stays while we're here. Is a nice padded mat down there for him. And he's out.
No.
See, like the focus on the toys is one of the things we do first to check his drive. We want him what's called a ball drive or a toy drive, where no matter what is going on, I can always control him, at least with the idea that he's going to get a toy. And that gives us the idea, at the very least, that if he will do anything for a toy, I can train him to do whatever we want. So if all of a sudden we're like, we need him to do a new discipline of some sort, I'm confident with a toy I can train him to do anything. Right? We got a couple different toys. This is just a Kong. It's just a very big chew toy, very big rubber one. If I actually let him have that, he will tear that thing. He'll tear that thing apart. If I let him chew on it by himself unsupervised too long. It's not his favorite toy. This one obviously is, as you can see. That's the one he wants, and that's the toy. That's the toy we use for drug detection, because of how much he wants it. That helps encourage him to search so bad, because that's the toy that he wants. So we're gonna go let him find the drugs real quick so he can get the little bit out of his system. I placed it under this flagpole over here a little while ago, so I don't know where you want to go with that here, but leave it here. Here, sit. So you notice I always have him sit before a drug search, because his spinal indication is a sit. So a drug search, he starts and ends in the same way, and that gets in his mind. What we're about to do is a drug search. So if I'm doing a track, he lays down first. See, so once we gave him the command soup, he's starting to sniff and break things. So you can see, like, he's really sniffing and detailing where to go. Ollie. I know, I'll fix it. So then you can see, once I told him soup, he started sniffing and really going looking for something. And then once he got to the flagpole, and I was doing a directed search. So a directed search is where I'm pointing the different places. That allows him to make sure he actually sniffs very specific things, where now he's sat and he's looking in the area where it's at. He's just waiting for his reward, and he gets his reward and he gets to play then. So his favorite play is tug. That's why this is his favorite toy. And as long as we do this, the more he desires to search, because he knows there's a reward at the end of that search. So he really doesn't care what the odor is he's finding. He just cares that he gets rewarded. Yes, I know. Look what you did. I know you're a meanie. Oh, all right, good boy. So I removed the tug toy for him. It's a stuffed fire hose. He'll chew them apart if I let him have them, so I don't let him have those to chew on. So I tried to replace it with this, and now I threw that out the door. And of course, now he wants to get it. So What? So the drug search, I mean, we're training these dogs to search for drugs. We're associating the odor with the toy. So what we end up doing is we will scent or we'll fill a toy with the odors that we want him to find. And when they're young, we go out to like a field with high grass and we throw it, and he gets used to searching for that odor and getting a toy, searching for the odor and getting a toy. And then we start hiding it in different places, like in rooms or in cars. And he gets the idea of the association. That odor means toy and play. That odor means toy and play. And then we remove the toy, and when he finds the odor, we give him the toy. And then we start integrating what we would call our final response. So for him, he sits and looks at the area. For some dogs, they scratch right at the area. So if it was a car scene where the odor's coming out, the dog will start scratching right at that scene. Did you find your ball? Literally, it's a bowl in a china shop, and my house is gonna get tore up. So yeah, so we associate that. So then once we can start training in the final response. So when he comes to the odor, he'll get there. I'll tell him to sit. He sits, and then he gets his toy. And the dogs are so smart. You do that a couple times, they get to the odor, they sit, they get the toy, and we move on from there for further to make them stare at it or to make them sit longer. If I'm doing a traffic stop and I'm searching a car, I have a leash on him. And when he gets to the odor, he stops, and no matter how hard I pull, he will still be sitting on the car. So there's no question that he smelled the odor and he's going through it and where it's coming from. So it's kind of the drug detection. It's pretty standard across all different detections. There's a couple of different training techniques that some people use more than others. But the basics is there's an association between the odor of the drug and the toy and the play, and that's what gets the dog to work so hard. So if you find a dog that will do anything for a toy and doesn't want to do anything but play, that's when we know we can mold that dog into some sort of detection dog. Tracking, the dogs like to track on their own as it is. You let your dog out, no matter what kind of dog it is, and a bunny had just run through the yard, it might catch the scent of the bunny on the ground and try to follow it. So we try to harness that and focus it specifically on humans and how to find that person the fastest. So we're in a very rural area. So a lot of people think when a dog is tracking, they go footprint to footprint to footprint, and they do sometimes, and some dogs do. The way we want it is more of like a trailing type thing. He finds the odor of the person, whether it's on the ground or in the air. So a lot of times we start off footprint, footprint, footprint. And if the person made like any sort of offer, you or something, and the wind's blowing and he catches that, as soon as he catches that scent in the wind, he will follow that to the person because that's the quickest route there. Most of the times when we have to track people here, they've been gone ahead before I get there for half an hour or so. Before the officers actually get there, and they call me and I get there and we start going. So we need to make up ground and we need to catch up quick. So that's the most productive way I found to do it, especially that most of the time we're tracking someone that's out in the woods or out in a more vast area than like downtown. Anytime we track downtown, it becomes a little more difficult because there's more cross traffic and foot traffic, but we train to deal with it, and you give your best shot that you can, and hope you go, you hope out for the best in those situations. So training the bite work, obviously you've seen it where people have had the sleeves on or the full suits on. I have the full suit, I have a sleeve, I have hidden sleeves that allow me to put them under people's pants or under people's shirts, and it don't look like they're wearing one. That way it's realistic for him. For the canines, when they're doing that, they're doing it out of one or two situations. They're either doing it as a command because the handler has said that person needs this to be done, or they're out of a defense mode. So if someone were to barge in through one of the doors right now screaming and acting really aggressive, he would light up, start barking at him, and if they didn't stop very quickly, he would be jumping at him, biting him in one of the trained locations. The bite work, like I said, we trained mostly to go to the limbs because the center of your body is more the areas that it's really bad to have that type of damage to. So we'd always train what we would call a primary target, secondary target, and the dogs get the idea. If this is available, I bite this. If this is not available, then I have to go here or there. So like I said, I prefer the front or back of the shoulder because of the way you're able to control a person safely with the least amount of damage. So for him, his primary target is that. Secondary target is the lower parts of the arms. Subsequent to that, if those aren't there, he knows, okay, I'll start at the lower part of the leg and move up the leg, whatever's available. So just as a police officer is trained to shoot center of mass on whatever's available to you. So if we don't have the whole person, we have to find a way to safely hit the person without missing. So the best place is to aim for the center of what's available. He has his primary targets, and he knows he's been trained to go up the ladder as we go through that. That's not too often when there has to be employed. He does get out to bark at people to get people to settle down a lot. Biting wise, it's only been a couple people where we've actually had to deploy that type of force on people, and they all worked out good. Everything was safe. Everything worked out well. He got hurt. He didn't get hurt. The people barely got any injuries from it. It was done in a proper way, and so thankfully it all worked out good. So he has, you'll see on him. I don't know if I can get him in a good view here. Quick, sit. We have what's called a training collar here, a prong collar. So a lot of people, I know that there's people that say that these are mean or nasty, but they're not. So this is his training collar. This is what we use to give a correction if needed. So you can see it can only go so tight. It can't choke him. It can't hurt him. The prongs on it, they're rounded off metal things. I can push on it as hard as I can. It's not going to puncture my skin or give me any injuries. I've seen videos or pictures of, look at this prong collar did to my dog. What happened there is they made it way too small and they gave way too hard of a correction. There's some people file these down. Those aren't realistic videos of how these are used. These are used all the time, especially on working dogs, especially on pet dogs, and they're great tools. Here. All it does is put on it a little bit of uncomfortable pressure if I were to have to pull on it, and it really can't hurt him at all. And I've used them on these dogs forever. He wears that just as a precaution. I don't ever even hook my leash to it anymore because his obedience levels is very high towards me. But it's there as a precaution that if something were to happen, I'd be able to grab a hold of it and he would know, okay, I need to stop whatever's happening. Yep. He also wears this harness thing. You'll see this harness has a patch on the front, if you can see that or not. And that goes on the front of his chest. And that takes the pressure off when I hook my leash to the ring up top, takes the pressure off his neck and puts it on his chest. So when we're going after people or tracking or we're running, if I have to have him on a leash, he's not impeding how he can breathe. It's not impeding his working process at all. So that's the best to it. And also because it's got all the 3 points of contact, if I were to have to grab the handle and lift him up over something, it can happen. Or in the past, like I've had to, is hook him onto it. And this leash has a bunch of different points of contact where I can then hook it to me. And now he's secure to me so that I don't need to use my hands. And I can use my hands for my weapons or writing notes or whatever. Or what's been most fun is if I had to jump off a bridge or something, I can do this, lower him down first, and then I can go with him. And it sounds odd, but we've had to do that chasing some before, go off a bridge. And the type of harness is the best way and safest way for him to be able to do his job and not injure his neck or his throat or anything like that. That's kind of what he keeps on him. 90% of the work I do with him is without a leash on. So you'll see me out in public or whatever, walking with him or using something with him, and you don't see a leash on him. Obviously, we're granted exceptions to different type of laws. And as long as his training and his obedience is up, it works okay. But I do carry the leash with me usually right here. It stays with me. That way I have it handy and ready to go if I need it. But we don't use it too often.
Yep.
That was Mary.
And the only really other thing I carry with me is this device here that sits on my belt. So I said that he has his own car. It's got a cage in the back instead of a rear seat. And that cage has a platform so he's safe and level. He can't fall off of anything. It's got a water dish in it and a non-slip mat. It also prevents any crushing. So if we were to be in an accident, it'll prevent him from getting crushed in that car. It also includes this device which allows me to monitor the temperature in the car. So you'll see, like, if I stop anywhere because I have to go for a call and I have to go into a business or a residence, my car's outside running and he's in it. It has a temperature monitor in it that constantly lets me know what the temperature is and if it's a safe place for him. If something were to malfunction in the car and it gets too hot, it will automatically drop the windows and start buzzing at me. And that'll tell me there's a problem. I can get out there and take care of it. It allows me to view on the little screen here, the monitor, what the temperature is. And then it has what's called as a door popper. So on the one door, if I were to hit this button here, it automatically has a piston on it and opens that door up and lets him out. What we use that for is if I have something, we're in a vehicle chase and the person wrecks or parks and flees on foot and I throw it in park and I get out running, I don't have to worry about stopping and open his door. As I'm running, I can hit that button. He's released. His trained response in that, as soon as he's released out of that, is to find me first. And then I'll give him a secondary command. So whether we're running or I'm just out of the car and I'm talking with someone just like this, I can hit it. He's trained to pop out, come to my side and lay down until I give him further commands. Any other equipment on? That's pretty much the equipment on us. Kind of basically now he's down to just a few different types of toys where he's got a couple chew toys and the tug toy like I showed you. That's about all of that. Any questions as of yet?
Yes, I have a question. I had the opportunity through LEC to see some of your other presentations. He has a protective vest, is that correct?
Yes.
And does he wear that every time you get called down or just on certain types of calls?
He does. He was granted a bulletproof and stab-proof vest, and it has been worn and used. It is not used every day, every shift. It's kind of a discretionary time when we're going to put it on. The reason being is overheating of the dog. Dogs don't work the way humans do. So when I put that on him, it actually envelopes his whole upper body area in this coverage. And it's a thick coverage like what I'm wearing, and it can be very hot. And for them, with the fur underneath of it, he could heat up real quick. So it's not safe for him to wear it all the time. But anytime that there is a known threat, a known something like that, we will put it on him. That way we can make sure he's safe. And that's kind of the way we go with it. We want to protect him from the equipment hurting him as well.
Not sure if there's any.
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
Is he a purebred dog?
Yeah, he's a purebred German Shepherd. He was, I'm not sure what city over in Germany, but he was bred over in Germany, and they were going to use him over there for one of the sports, one of the dog sports like Schutzhund or ring sports or Mondo. But before he got too far in that, someone in the United States had purchased him and flown him over.
I lived with a dog with almost that much energy, and it's not an easy thing. I know.
Yeah, they we
Go
have
ahead.
procedures to monitor it so that my house doesn't get too bad.
Yeah, I'll bet you do.
I got
Is he used throughout the county?
Yeah. Elk-Cameron, the way it was done when I initially started this back in 2008 was the district attorney's office paid for the dog and the training. The city paid for the vehicle, the equipment and all that. If I get called out, the city pays the overtime for that. However, because the district attorney paid for it through drug seizure funds, anytime anybody in the county needs me, I go. But I've also extended it because there's not, well, it's getting better, but there's not a lot of canines anywhere. And so if somebody in a neighboring county or something, they need it and they call me, there's a good chance I'm going just to help out, even if it's a chance where I'm not going to get reimbursed for my time. It's a resource that's needed. Now, thankfully, about 3 years ago, we have to train at least a minimum of 16 hours every month. And once a year, we have to certify in all the aspects of the things we do. And that is where we go to a national organization and they have certifying officials who watch what we're doing and say, yes, they are working optimally, and we will sign off and say that they're good. That allows anything I do to make it through the legal challenges in court. So that certification then happens once a year. And over the last couple of years, I've worked up where I'm a certifying official for the American Working Dog Association, which is what he's trained through. And so I'll go to different areas and certify other police dogs that they're working right. So through that, I worked hard with DuBois City, Punxsutawney Borough. You recently got a dog. And so they both got their canine units up and going, and they're working really good. I work and train with them. We try to get together once or twice a month and work. And so they're getting more into our area, which is good and helpful. But yeah, we'll go anywhere in the county, neighboring counties if they need to.
Now, Sergeant Schaefer, have you helped Elkland Search and Rescue find anybody lost in the woods at hunting season or something like that?
Yeah. So him and I are usually there before search and rescue teams get there and go through what they got to do, which is good because once a whole search and rescue team gets there and gets out there, that's a lot of different people and a lot of different odors. So if I can get there first and at least attempt to track to see if I can find the person or at least find something to help search and rescue out, it's beneficial. So the last time we did it, actually, I was there and we were able to go and we didn't track them, but we ended up catching the odor. Like I didn't know where they were. So I was just out in the woods running with him, and eventually he kind of got the odor and I let him go and follow it. And we found the people. Search and rescue then came in and helped get the people because they were so far in, they didn't know where they were and I didn't know where we were. So search and rescue would come in, find them, and use their equipment to get them out.
Oh, good.
Sergeant Schaefer, we have a question. Does Nando have any other handlers, or are you the only one? And similarly, will he respond to other officers?
Yeah. Okay. So the way they work it is it's one dog per handler. What that allows is the relationship him and I have is what's optimal for working. So the reason you don't have one dog for department that's working 24/7 with 4 or 5 different officers is because of the lack of consistency in training and the lack of consistency in how I would handle him compared to another person, which would cause confusion in the dog. So by allowing it being a one-on-one thing, our relationship and the bond is solidified where I can watch what's going on with him and he watches me, and it's to the point where we don't even need to use anything anymore because we know what's going on just by watching and listening to each other. So that bond and that relationship is the primary factor that makes a canine unit a good team or a bad team. So that's why it's optimal to have one person, one handler. He minimally will listen to other officers if they appease him the right way. So when I go on vacation, we have like 4 or 5 of the officers here in the department that will stop in my house and feed him and let him out, run him around a little bit. So the last time I went away for a weekend, it was just 2 days that they had to come in. 2 different guys went there and I got 2 messages from them. How do I get him to let go of the toy? Because for me, yep, sits. Yep, sits. And oust. When I tell him oust, he drops it. No big deal. Well, he wasn't doing it for him. So I had to get them to go and get a milk bone and show him the milk bone, and he would let go of it and take the bone. They could grab the toy real quick. So I'm comfortable if they take him out that he's going to follow him, know that. If they tell him to sit and all that, as long as they have a toy, he'll do it because he's got a motivating factor to do it. But when it comes down to if they were to take him into a situation to search for something or do whatever, it wouldn't click right because it hasn't. For dogs, consistency is king, and that's why it's good with one handler and how it works best.
Is it possible for Nando to get exposed to substance while he's searching for drugs?
Exposed to what?
Exposed to what, Kate? I didn't hear you.
A harmful substance.
Oh.
Yeah. So obviously, my job is to use the head I have to protect him. So I go in first. If it's like let's say I'm going to search someone's house, I go in first and I do a walk around and look. And so the first level of safety for that is me using my eyes to make sure there's nothing there. He then goes through. If he were to, let's say, knock something off and something get exposed, it's possible. But we also have a med kit that has naloxone for him that I would give an injection for in different substances. So if he were to get in something, I'd be able to treat him right then and there until we can get him to better care. So it's possible, but I try to minimize the chances of that. So things like searching inside of cars, I won't put him in a car to search because there's so much chance for an exposure there. So that's when we'll just have humans do that part themselves. So it's possible, but we take the precautions by me doing it. And then I do have the backup of having the naloxone and the different drugs on board with me. So if something were to happen, I can treat them.
Great. And somebody asks, now that masking is common, does this seem to affect Nando at all or not?
Nope, I haven't had any issues with it. I've been doing even when I'm outside doing obedience, I'll put my mask on. It keeps my nose warm. So it hasn't affected him all. He's still doing it. I think there's a little barrier between I have to talk a little louder, but it's been all right. It's amazing how I get amazed all the time is how much they pick up on and recognize and know. When I'm at home, if I go down in just my normal clothes and open the door, he goes out to the one spot he's designated. He'll do his business. He comes right back in. I don't even need to go out with him. I open the door. He could run out and do it and come right back in. If I go down in with, like when I'm getting ready to go to work, even though I'm still wearing the same clothes, for somehow he knows we're going to work. So I'll open the door and he'll run up to the police car. How he knows the difference, I don't know, but he knows there's something about me or the way I'm presenting or something I'm carrying or the way I'm putting something off that he knows. We can be driving around all day and I can drive past my house and he's fine. But if we're going home, he knows. So as soon as we're going home, he starts whining and getting like, okay, we're going home. So he knows the difference. And the way they pick things up is amazing.
So you always keep him in your police car. You keep your police car at home.
Yeah, the police car comes home with me. And I park it. It's ready to go. So if the guys at work can call me out in the middle of the night, I can be there as quick as possible. So I have a jumpsuit that I'll throw on, which has the patches and everything. So it still looks official. It's got a belt attached to it. So if I get called out at 2 a.m., I get up, I can put it on. I'm ready to go in a matter of seconds. I go to where he is and his collar and harness are hanging right above his cage. I can strap them on real quick. The car's, like I said, I park it all ready to go. We jump in there and in a matter of minutes, I'm out of my house to wherever they need me. So there's a sacrifice being a canine handler in this area. I mean, not just for me, like my whole family, like I have to take care of them. So every so often at home, I'm letting them out. I have to run them. I have things set, ready to go. So I can't just like go home and be done with work. I have to always be there. I'm not paid to be on call, but if you call me at 2 a.m., even though I just got home at 11 and fell asleep, my phone's on next to there. When I work midnights and I get home at 7 and I have to be up at 1 to get the kids home from school, my phone's still on, and there's those sacrifices. My family has to deal with the fact that, my wife's sleeping at 2 a.m. and all of a sudden I get phone calls but it's worth it to see what the good in the community it can have.
Thank you. So Sergeant Schaefer, someone mentioned that they could tell that you use German commands.
Oh yeah. So his commands are in German. Now, if I tell him something in English, I've noticed sometimes he's picked up on it. I don't know how, but maybe I have other dogs, so maybe it's from that. But his commands are in German to alleviate confusion. So the word no in German is nein. So if I'm dealing with someone, they're acting up and I'm yelling, no, don't do it. No, don't do it. He don't think I'm yelling at him because that's not his correction word. So yeah, I've been using German words. You hear me say "such" to search, lay down is plots, sit in seats. What else do I do? If I tell him to bite, there's a German word for that. I tell him to bark is geblotz. So we get all kinds of different German words to do. We got to do heel, Fuß.
And I think too, Sergeant, you've also said that helps so that a potential, criminal that you might be chasing or dealing with also can't give the dog commands to make him stop doing something. Yeah. The out word at aus. He might be saying ow while he's getting bit, but he's not saying aus. Great. Okay. And here's a great question. Does Nando have all the equipment that he needs? And who covers the vet and food bills? And is it possible to make a donation to Nando?
Yes. So right now I have all the equipment I need. We're doing well with that. We continually get donations, which the city has an account for that sits there and builds up in case something were to happen where we would need the money, whether it's for medical or equipment or something like that down the road. If something like the vehicle is a big expense, if something where that were to break or I need to replace something, that's where kind of that happens. The vet bills, Elk County Vet Clinic with Dr. Shirey, he's covered all his vet bills, and he's pushed them. With the ear getting hurt, he broke a canine, and the vet brought a canine or a dog dentist up from Pittsburgh up to make sure he did a root canal and capped it so it wouldn't bother him. So they've been wonderful, covering everything for him, covering his flea and tick, everything. So they're good. Tractor Supply pays for half the food for me. So you know, we're a blessed canine team. The community does take care of us. If you do give a donation, you can just bring it down to the chief. He knows how to make sure the city funnels it into the right place for me. And then he always sends me a notification, hey, someone, you know, donated this for you guys. And
That's awesome. So then the fire department also gives you pieces of hose then to replenish his toys.
They're usually pre-built from a company
okay.
I buy them from. That way they're stuffed. And I think they get rid of old hoses. So I eyed them up one day thinking, I wonder if I can get it and stuff it myself and sew it up, but
Yeah, afraid.
I need some help.
Yeah.
I'm not much for sewing.
And we have time for one more question here. How many more years will he serve before you'll need another dog?
So they usually work up until they're like 10, 12-ish. So Copper was like 10 when he retired. So that's kind of the way he's at. He's 6 now, so we got 4 to 6 more years left. And that's usually as long as there's no injuries or nothing really going. And that depends on what the dog does. If they're just a drug searching dog, they can last longer because that's not so taxing on the body. As with tracking and biting, people can put a little more brute on the body. But I know drugs aren't good. So he's got 4 to 6 more years to go. The bigger concern I have right now is he is trained to detect marijuana. And if marijuana becomes a legal drug, he would actually have to be retired or put in a facility where marijuana is illegal and we would have to replace him. That's kind of where I'm at right now. And I really hope that the legalization can be pushed down the road long enough to at least give him the majority of his life on duty, because he is such a hardworking dog, an energetic dog. He needs to have a job. And if I got to retire him, I don't know what I'm going to do with myself.
Would you get another dog if you had to retire him?
Yeah. The kind of way I've been looking at it, this is my second dog. I look at it as what's going to happen in my future. Am I going to be able to take another dog through the full term? And I think at this point, I will have the time to do one more before future plans change or I retire, one of the two.
Right.
I look young. I'm not that young.
Right. We appreciate everything you do for the community with Nando.
Well, thank you so much, Sergeant Schaefer. Thank you, Nando. Glad we gave him a little bit of opportunity to play and find some drugs today.
Yeah.
Thank you to Chief Nicholas as well for, as always, hosting us. Usually, again, for the full leadership Elk-Cameron program, we would have spent about half a day, good 4 solid hours here at the station, just looking at more sorts of paraphernalia, hearing more stories. But Nando is always the star of the show when we are here. So thank you for joining us this afternoon. There will be an evaluation sent out via email with a link. Please complete that evaluation. We do use your feedback, honestly, to help improve our sessions each month. And don't forget, there's lots of giveaways when you do complete the evaluation and include your name. If you have not already signed up for next month, February is going to be a session on local government. And we promise we always make it as interactive and engaging as possible. So thanks again for joining us on your lunch hour today. And this month, hopefully we'll see you next month, if not before.
Thank you.